This is part 3 of 3. It's the Kanban board setup, talking you through it on behalf of some questions. Glitched bug on Discord. Please like, subscribe, do me a favor. Took like 3 hours to prepare for this. Some love from you would be great. With children, but I'm doing this for you because I love you all. Have a look at this, see what you think, come back with any questions. I hope it's useful and valuable. You need to have watched or listened to part 2 to understand why I'm doing this. So there are some links, I'm sure, around the place. Go and have a look at that if you haven't already. And let's go. So let's share screen. So this will look like a Kanban board. It's empty at the moment, but I'm going to show you a view with some cards in it. What we're seeing here is a product called Businessmap. It was formerly Kanbanize, which is a much better name than Businessmap. But Kanbanize, my favorite tool for Kanban boards. It has beautiful hierarchy, incredible features. This is the multi-project small team board. If I go and edit workflow, I've left some notes here. So if I have a look at the description. So we've agreed, right, how we're going to prioritize. So in great detail, when you get to the work, you're going to be using early feedback, unblocking downstream. You're going to be doing FIFO aging and then minimize changeover. But the Kanban board itself prioritizes by saying start at the top and work your way down. In the previous one, we had project B as the top priority. In this one, I've just kept it simple. I've just said project A, then B, then C, because it's easier for me. But it doesn't matter. You work from the top down, and that's how you do the prioritizing. And then you look at these for actual items. And that's mainly going to be the producer at first using that project manager to prioritize work. But eventually, you'd want the whole team to understand that. A global WIP policy. Remember, without WIP, there is no Kanban. The work in progress across all projects is one because somebody can only work on one thing at a time. Because we've got a board which shows all of the projects at once, you can see what everybody's doing. So, like I say, it's only a 2 if one item is genuinely blocked or awaiting a step. One thing in progress is all that really one person should be working. So, same goes for Expedite. So, sometimes, quite often, you have an Expedite swimming lane in a Kanban board. I've chosen not to do that. Instead, I've just got an Expedite sticker you can put on a card. And this should only be any one time, there's one card, okay? So like I say here, use a sticker to mark the card, and it requires explicit agreement with the producer to expedite something. What is Expedite? Expedite is when you throw everybody a problem. Like something terrible's happened, everyone stops and works on that thing. Often you don't need everybody, but that is the point of Expedite. Client's going to sack us or just about to lose this big piece of work. Everyone needs to drop what they're doing and do this thing. You only do it one card at a time. You don't just use it to charge work through quickly because it will crush your flow. Just only when you absolutely must use it. Anyway, so I've made some notes there. Let's go back to the board because it's easier to see. So, and there's those stickers, by the way, there. You can just drag it to a card. Right, so in my case, I've got Expedite for a build or break or a blocker, or Expedite because of the client critical emergency. This board, forget about Nish's workflow. That's a thing in Kanbanize you don't need to know about. And here I've got the swimming lanes. I've got Project A, which is a feature delivery co-dev. We're doing some work on somebody else's game. We've got some features to do. Project B is a Project B is a batch art assets project. So let's say there's 100 assets. And then the final project, and the ones that are live at the moment, I mean, you might have 10, you might have 1, right? But at the moment, animation on supplied assets. So straightforward. And then at the bottom, because we do want to visualize work that everyone's doing, I've chucked in BAU internal. I should probably have duplicated the flow like I've done with the others, but I ran out of time. Forgive me. But BAU internal is, much as you would expect, it's business as usual. So things you have to do, or it's internal work. So it's ops and support work, or tooling and tech debt, as I put here. Let's have a look. Oh, sorry, that's the... Yeah, there you go, ops support. So non-project work that must not invisibly consume capacity. Don't use this to bypass any rules. If somebody's working in there, that's their WIP limit. And then tooling tech debt, same thing, right? So There's those at the bottom, but they're at the bottom. And that means that you need to go back to the top because we've decided in the previous part 2 that this project A, yes, it was B in the other one, never mind. We've decided using our scoring system that project A is the top priority. So you would expect to see most people in project A, and then after that, project B and after that, C. I've used these swimming lanes to show you an example of how we can move from left to right in Kanban, right? So we have this intake clarify, and it starts with the backlog. So you can have as many things in the backlog as you like, because the backlog is just stuff you know that you're probably going to have to do, right? The doing column here is just to say, we're currently taking cards from the backlog. Probably the producer is taking cards from the backlog, talking to people, sorting stuff out, putting more details in, getting them ready, etc. When they're ready, we move them into ready clarified. This means we understand what this is, and it's shaped well enough to schedule. So we can use this to prevent starting work with unknowns, like it says there. It's where change requests are clarified, probably owned by a producer project manager. Ready committed means we're going to do this thing. And you notice it's been dragged right into the ready committed column from ready clarified. What happens is that things start to get dragged across as you have your cadence meetings. Yeah, okay, we've clarified this card. It's ready to go. We need to do it. And we're now going to say we're going to deliver it in the next week or next few days. It's ready to go. And you go, great, it's got everything it needs in there. There's a WIP limit suggestion in there of 15. I've presumed probably there's about 5 or 6 people maybe working on project A because it's really important, and maybe they can handle about 2 or 3 things in that week. But it's up to you. That's an example of where you would say, well, I know my team better than that. We can do this, and you can change that now. So then it's a ranked queue. What's at the top is your next pull. That's your replenishment queue. So that's where, if you have like a, say, once a week meeting or maybe more than that, that's where that you keep putting things in there. There's always something in there to pull. If it's pulled, you can pull it straight into doing. So there's this column over here, doing. Or if it requires a specialist, you set up your subtasks. We've decided that a specialist is either an animator, technical artist, or a QA person, right? So in the card here, what you do is you say, as part of Ready Committed, we're going to set up these subtasks, use specific tagging in the subtask so it's easy, and we assign it to the animator. There might be a deadline. We do the same with tech artists and QAs. If you do have these constrained roles, if you remember, we were talking about the animator, there's usually loads too much work on the animator, particularly now because we know that Project C is an animation project. We also know that Project A is a top priority. So we need the animators working on this stuff first, okay? And then going back to Project C and doing their work. So we know that because of the order of things. So we can say, okay, animator, we've tagged a subtask in this card. And it could be that the subtasks have got like an animator, some work for the animator and TA, and they both need to finish their stuff. If they do, it goes into ready for specialist. And ready for specialist is just saying, right, okay, we're now waiting for that specialist to start the build stage. So there's a WIP limit on there, so you should probably only put 2 things in there at once, right? Because otherwise it's going to get a bit messy per specialist. And when they start working, you just move it over into doing. If there's no specialist work, you can go straight from ready committed to doing. You don't have to have any subtasks or do anything. So you can chuck it straight across. And this is just where the doing happens. So this is where the work's going on. Great. And then ready for integration. So we're presuming that you're going to have integration work to do. Here we go, ready for integration. And then it can get pulled from ready for integration into integration. So once you've decided it's ready for integration, you can chuck stuff across. So here we've got tech artist, maybe for content integration, lead backend dev for code integration. We've got a WIP in there, which is like, because you don't want it too big, right? So you can go, right, okay, it's an integration, and we verified that, ready for QA. So if it's integration, it means it's being done, right? The integration's happening. And then, okay, it's ready now. And when it's ready for QA, that means it can get pulled across. So ready to test. There's like up to maybe 3 cards in there. That's what we're doing in this case. And then we're testing. And then it's ready for client review. This is a work for hire. So there's always going to be a client review. Your slice of feature has got this far, and you go, right, it's ready for client review, pull it across into client review. You don't want too many things waiting for client review either. So if too many things are waiting, then your client's probably not very quick. You need to talk to them. And then when it gets to approved, you go, okay, so approved in this case means they're happy, great. And then you can pull it into done. That means it's been accepted. You can archive it next, which is that final column if you want to. This is just an example. You might have a totally different set of wording, a set of breaking this, how you would do it yourself. This is just one example that might work. It's then been duplicated for the other projects. By going through these other projects, you can see that because you're not doing feature delivery code dev, you might be able to skip some of these quite quickly. Before I go there, though, you should know that I put exit criteria into quite a few of these, but you can't see it from here until you put a card in and scrolled over it. So I'm going to go to the workflow to show you. Let's have a look at ready clarified. The exit criteria is down here. This means to leave ready clarified, you have to have the acceptance criteria understood. The inputs have to be present. The dependencies need to have been identified, and the slice needs to be small enough. Right? Otherwise, you need to split it. And if that doesn't happen, the card won't let you pull it across. You have to tick each of them and say, yes, that's done. Then you can pull it across. So if we go to ready committed, then we've got, okay, the item's prioritized, it's pullable, it's within the WIP intent for the next planning window, great. And then you say blockers are removed or explicitly flagged, okay, great. And the subtasks have been created. So again, I've got here the information about the subtasks, right, where how you do that. You just put subtask in if you've got some of these constrained roles. So then it goes from ready committed to the specialist. And of course, the specialist we've already talked about, then to the doing. When it's in the doing, you might have stuff like required contributions for this slicer complete. So all the different areas have completed their work. The handoff info is attached if you need to. There's no hidden work remaining. So there's none of this, oh, it's 90% done, but don't worry, just pass it along. And any sort of subtasks for these constrained roles like animator are done. And so then it's gone to ready for integration. So if it's an integration, we've got things like it's been integrated, merged to agreed branch mainline, builds successfully, smoke checks completed, integration notes have been updated, right? And we're to test it. You go, okay, great. So then it can move to ready to test. Build verify just means it's ready for QA, which is why there's no exit criteria because you've got exit criteria in one before. Drag it into ready to test. In testing, you can put your own criteria in, right? And then ready for client review. I've kind of approved. Don't think I've got any in there. But you might add some stuff. I've put some stuff in done. Make sure the documentation and packaging is completed. The metrics maybe have been captured. Basically, you can do what you like with that. And in my case, I can add a card and it will not allow you to pull across until you've met those criteria. Going back to the session we had on part 2, I can also use this to mark aged cards. If I've got cards which have been aged for too long, it will show on here. One of the priorities, right, that you look for is how old a card is. I can also look at the number of days before a deadline, and I can raise that as an alert so that it will mark a card and say, this card is now 5 days or 10 days before the deadline, so it needs to be prioritized. If we scroll down and have a look at this Project B batch art assets, I've got the same thing where it's exactly the same information here about what you can do. Going to the workflows, you'll note that the swimming lanes within the project. So here we get next gate package fixed date. So remember, these are feature slices that need to be delivered from the studio. What we've got here is the minimum scope needed for the next review, submission, or acceptance. For these projects, rather than saying here's all the work, we would say, no, what work needs to be done for the next milestone? Our milestone might be in 2 weeks' time, and we say, right, okay, so what needs to get done? And the absolute bare minimum that has to get done is your next gate package, fixed date, sorry. But the standard feature flow is you might have a whole bunch of other work as part of the project, right? That if you get ahead, you could do some of that. So you can put it into that swim lane. And maybe it gets moved up to the top swim lane as time goes by, but it could be that you get ahead in some way. And then the change request rework. So that's a really important swimming lane. What we agreed was that you would try to use one card as much as possible and not have loads of children cards, and certainly not move from right to left only from left to right. One of the ways to doing that is that if you get rework come in, you can add a card in there. So, and put it in the right place. So let's say you've got a card and it's got a feature work and it's got all the way, sorry, to say, and it's being tested in, and then there's a problem that appears. You can put a ticket into change request rework, assign it to the right people, and get them to be working on that thing, and then for it to go back into testing without having to move this main card back and forth, right? And that's just a child card. And then when you've got it in client review, the client quite often will come back and say, "What about this? What about that?" So you could put the card down here, the rework card, and say, "We've got somebody working on that thing down here." Might be you want to put the card further back and work it up the chain. You can go from left to right if it makes more sense for you, or you can just chuck it in here. The main thing is whoever's working on that piece of work for the client review to pass that client review, that's their WIP limit, right? That's what they're doing. They stop everything else they're doing. So project B has the same sort of thing, right? Okay, great. We're at project A, we moved to project B, and I'd made a mistake because I hadn't changed the swimming lanes. So I've done that now. The swimming lanes should have said first of kind style and pipeline validation, because we know that the first thing you need to do is you need to look at, so project B, batch chart assets. This is where you're making just 100 art assets, and you don't need some of the complication of the other feature delivery co-dev work. The swimming lanes here reflect that. The top one is your first of kind style pipeline validation. It's the bit that says, let's test the work. You remember that's part of our prioritization, right? The thing you should do first is validate what we're doing. Once we've validated it, we can then move to the next one down, which is batch production. You don't want to move on batch production until you've got the first of kind ready and signed off and approved, right? So then you've still got your change request rework that can happen there, particularly with client approval, but not much changes apart from that. I have changed some of the exit criteria as well to reflect the fact that rather than build your art production, so some of that stuff's changed where you don't really need it, right? And some of it as well, what you'd be checking and what you're interested in setting up is going to change because it's art rather than build. And it could be that as a result of that, QA validation might be really light. It might just be a quick check over for making sure that things are, within a performance value and things like that that you agreed with the client, and then quickly go ahead to the client review. It might be that you haven't got an integrate, build, verify. You might well do though. It might be that your tech artist takes work after it's been done and has to do something with it, like put it back in engine. Or it might be that you don't have that ask from whoever's working on it with you, whoever the team is that's hiring you to do these things. So it depends, right? There's some of these things you could maybe skip. However, leave them in there. Make it as long-winded as you can, because then you can see where things are by scrolling up and down. If you start using completely different columns, you'll find that visually it's going to be really difficult for you to match where things are. Bear that in mind. If you do change things here, feel free. Just bear that in mind, that you don't want to be cutting it or changing it completely to a stage where there's just way too much detail in one project, hardly any in another project, really difficult visually to see what's going on. So project C, we know there's an animation on supplied assets job there. So, you're given some stuff and off you go. In terms of the backlog and the ready bits, that's going to be fairly swift, you'd hope, right? And you're still going to do your first of kind pipeline validation, not so much on the style stuff, but you're going to do your validation, right, and get that signed off. And you're going to get that approved and go, right, go for it, batch production. And then in this case, because the animator is going to be doing nearly all the work, your specialist bit, you can ignore that, just go straight to doing, right? Because you haven't got a specialist to wait for. Yeah, unless there is some work for somebody else. But the animation work, just use the main card. Don't bother. They're the only person doing most of the work there. If you've got 50 tasks, there's no point putting a subtask that's the same as the main task. Use your common sense on that one. And it will still work fine. It won't mess anything up. In this case, with animation, we don't really have integration or build verify to the same degree, right? It's different. And QA, it's different. It might be very light and very fast, which is fine. And then off to the client review. So what I'd like to do next is actually put some cards in here and show you some examples of the view filtering. for the animator. All right, so I've added some cards for the animator, and I pretended that I'm the animator. Taken me a long time to add everything else in, so I thought, why not just do it this way? So at the moment, L is the animator. So we know that this is the top priority at the top, right? The top project. So I've put some animator stuff in there. Some of them ready for specialists. Some of them are just integration only. So I haven't bothered with subtasks. I've gone straight in with the main task. There are multiple specialists or people doing it, I've added the animator work there as a subtask, then the TA work there as a subtask. But these are the top priorities, right? Some are ready for specialists, some are not. And then down here, we've got the low priority project, which is just animation stuff. And there's a whole bunch of work there. You see, we've already done pipeline validation. We're just into batch production. So there's a whole point. And by the way, this is exactly reflecting the table I showed you in part 2 of this. So when I look at my queue, you can see that my queue looks pretty bad, doesn't it? It's like, oh my God, what do I do next? I've got all of these things. What do I do? So, like I said to you, you can put a filter in to say, well, just show, hang on a second. What I did was I went, right, let's just put a filter. This filtered view is the view which says, show me the animator's tasks, but only show them if they're in the ready column, ready for specialist column. And when you do that, the animator's life becomes a beautiful thing. Look, it's empty. There's nothing in there apart from this one thing. And that's the way it should be. The animator doesn't need to know that there's ready committed stuff in there because the ready for specialist column is what the producer looks after. The producer will throw things in there and say, next one, it's going to be this. But let's say there were 2. It would be very clear to the animator that the one at the top of everything is the one that they want. And therefore, even if there were 3 things in there, well, 2 things, because 2 is the WIP limit, even if there were 2 things in there, they would know that they grab the one at the top first, according to our prioritization rules that we covered in the previous one. So that's quite nice, right? Because from an animator's perspective, they go, right, that's the next one. Whereas if you turn that off and you look at what the animator sees as their own work, they see a massive stuff. So that's quite nice. And the same is true of the QA people, as we covered before. So I hope that's useful. Let me know if that's handy. Let me know if I've missed out anything or if you want to hear anything else. Much appreciate you liking and subscribing, leaving your comments and questions. So thank you very much. Please like, subscribe, come to game-production.com and sign up and join the Discord and all that sort of thing, and come and join the newsletter, and there's lots going on. Thank you.